Well, good morning, good afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. Welcome to the first ever community call. I'm Diogo, a marketing contributor at Core. I will be your host today, and together with another marketing contributor, Trent, who's here. We also have Denali and Wayne from Core side. And we have Toby from Coland and Max from NLX, two recently launched projects on CoreChain. You guys probably have seen it. Today marks the launch of our exciting monthly series aimed at connecting with the tech, all the core Toshis. So we'll dive into the latest technical developments and significant updates regarding CoreChain. We have an engaging agenda lined up for you, including some discussions on our new liquid staked tokens, the historic non-custodial Bitcoin staking, and Wrap Bitcoin. So all of these are designed to increase functionality, improve security, and expand the utility of Bitcoin within the DeFi landscape. So let's get ready to explore them. For you, Kortoshis, watching or just listening to, don't hesitate to leave questions about liquid staking, non-custodial Bitcoin staking, and Wrap Bitcoin. You can do it in the comment section on the live stream here on YouTube, um, and we will be answering them in the end. So without further delays, let's start. Maybe let's start with first things first, so you guys can give a little bit of an intro of yourselves. Let's start with Trent, maybe.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Diogo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. So I'm Trent Fowler. I am a contributor here at Core DAO. I'm mostly responsible for technical writing and for developer relations work. I've been doing that for about 15 years, and a lot of it has been in the blockchain space. So it's a set of projects that I'm very passionate about and I care a lot about. And I'm really happy to talk to you about what we're doing at Core.
Sounds good. Wayne, do you want to give a bit of introduction of yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm one contributor here at Core, and I'm focusing mainly on product engineering side. So I work with cross-functional teams with BD marketing, engineering, just trying to, try to surface the best ideas within Core and make it into a reality.
Awesome. Denali.
Yeah, I'm Denali Marsh. I am also a contributor at Core and mostly focus on the engineering side, specifically protocol engineering and blockchain engineering. So have a little bit of technical knowledge about some of the stuff we'll be talking about today. Super excited to share.
Let's go to our partners. So, Toby.
Hi guys, thanks for the invite today. Really happy to join this community call and looking forward for the next ones as well. So I'm from Current team, guys. So I don't know if you heard, but it's the lending and borrowing protocol that we recently launched on Core. So really looking forward to build on Core and as well like to leverage all the nice utility and technical solution that Core is building right now, especially like liquid staking and non-custodial BTC. I think there's a lot to discuss today. I'm really looking forward to deep dive into it.
Awesome. You heard it, guys. Borrowing lending on core chain, CoLend. So let's jump to Max from NLX Protocol.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me all right?
All good.
Perfect. All right. So how you doing? My name is Max. I'm the CEO and founder at NLX Protocol. We are an on-chain perpetuals protocol on Core that focuses on on-chain perpetuals backed by Bitcoin. So, thanks to the native integrations that Core has with the Bitcoin protocol through their Core BTC wrap token and through other solutions, we're able to supply these markets that allow for anybody to trade their different products without having to sell their Bitcoin, entirely collateralized and earning Bitcoin. So, yeah, that's us.
Bitcoin DeFi at its finest, it seems. So yeah, just another project recently launched on Core. go check Coland and NLX protocol. Okay, so thank you all for this introduction. Let's get ready to explore liquid staking. Trent, are you ready to take over?
Can you guys see that?
Yes.
See my screen introduction, April 2024 community call? Excellent. Okay. So thank you, Diogo, so much for that introduction. Thank all of you for being here, especially our partners. We're really excited to see what you guys are building on top of CoreChain's basic functionality. As Diogo mentioned, we are going to cover 3 major technical innovations today: liquid staking, tokens, non-custodial Bitcoin staking, and wrapped BTC. So let's get right into it. All right, first of all, we will discuss liquid staking. So what liquid staking allows is for Coretoshis or members of our broader community to turn staked core into liquid staked tokens. Now, I imagine most of you are at least familiar with the CoreChain white paper, and you know that Satoshi Plus Consensus makes heavy use of staking. I'm not going to reiterate all that here unless you have specific questions about it, but suffice it to say that staking is a huge component of how the security of our chain is underwritten. And this, therefore, is a major innovation, specifically because with ST Core, which is what we call liquid staking tokens on Core, instead of the standard LST abbreviation, we use ST Core. But with ST Core tokens, you can earn consensus rewards, which are equivalent to regular staking. So you suffer no monetary penalty for going the liquid staking route as against the more vanilla regular staking route. And with ST Core, you can swap those tokens. You can join liquidity pools. You can engage in flash lending or flash borrowing, as some of the functionality that's being brought up by Coland. You can do all the things that you would expect to be able to do with a token while still remaining liquid. Now, I think it's worth at this point pulling back a bit and talking about liquid staking more broadly as an innovation and why that's important. I suspect for many of you that will be review. However, I think it's worth getting on the record, and it will help to contextualize some of the things we're going to be talking about in the future. So staking has long been a staple in the crypto asset space. Ethereum famously, after the merge, moved away from their original proof of work model and towards a proof of stake model. And today, if you want to become a validator on Ethereum, you have to lock up or stake a certain amount of Ethereum. So this is a popular consensus mechanism. There are many variants of this consensus mechanism. So it's an important way of engaging in consensus activities, securing networks, and publishing distributed ledgers. That having been said, staking can lead to liquidity issues. So when I'm talking to my non-crypto initiated friends and family, sometimes I liken staking to nailing a gold bar to a door. In a way, you have staked a claim on the building or the space. However, you can't do any further economically useful activity with it. And so recognizing that this was a problem, liquid staking was developed to ameliorate the underlying issue. So with a liquid staking token, you can stake, you can underwrite the security of a blockchain project you care about, and still remain liquid. The crypto asset space moves very quickly. There are constantly new developments, and it thrives on liquidity. There has to be enough funding available to prop up old projects, to buy and sell goods, to engage in economically useful activity, to finance new projects. Like that money has to be moving around through the ecosystem. So with a liquid staking token, you can effectively have your cake and eat it too. Or I suppose we should say you can have your steak and eat it too. You can stake and participate in consensus processes and also remain liquid. And that's exactly the sweet spot that ST Core occupies, right? Rather than having your funds rendered illiquid when you stake your core, ST Core keeps liquidity high in the broader ecosystem so that it can function and move forward. You can think of staking as being kind of like a carrot and a stick at the same time. It's a very compelling mechanism for keeping all of the broader stakeholders in alignment with respect to their incentives. So, for a validator, for example, if they do their job correctly, they mine blocks, they vet transactions correctly, the value of their staked assets will increase. And if they do something they're not supposed to do, those assets can be slashed. They can be punished for it. So it's a very compelling mechanism for keeping everyone aligned toward the long-term health of an ecosystem they care about. So that's what ST Core does. It keeps liquidity high, helps us align incentives, and it's an innovation that we're very excited about. Now, a couple of other things worth mentioning about liquid staking. So Previously, when you were just doing vanilla staking of core tokens, your yields had to be manually restaked. So you had to go in and specifically take those yields and restake them in order to have them compound. But with ST Core, this process happens automatically. And what we think that is going to create over time is a change in the ratio of core to ST Core. Manually restaking on core is not difficult because we've put a lot of effort into our user interface, and we've put a lot of effort into making sure the process is very smooth. But we all know that even if it only takes 5 minutes, there will be people on the margins who don't do it. But with ST Core, they don't have to worry about that. The restaking of yields happens automatically. And so we think that's going to make it more attractive. And so gradually the fraction of or the ratio of core to ST Core will start to tip in favor of ST Core over time. It is worth pointing out that with ST Core, there is a 7-day redemption period. So if you want to unstake those and redeem them, it takes up to a week. We don't think that's going to be any kind of an issue, but it's worth mentioning. And it's also worth pointing out that this absolutely does not affect regular core staking. If that's the route you want to go and you don't want to do liquid staked core, you can still do regular staking. You can stake and unstake, buy and sell as you like. Your life won't change at all as a result of this change. All right, so that is liquid staking core. Wayne, Denali, do you guys want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think one additional point, everything you said is correct. I just want to expand on it slightly. Something that's cool about liquid staking tokens, kind of as an asset class, if you want to think about it that way, is that they're a little bit analogous in traditional finance to something like bonds, where with a bond, you have this like APY built into the asset, so to speak, right? Like at its core. And that then allows for more complex financial products to be built upon the concept of a bond. You can, package these things up together with other assets, and we all know how Wall Street can create these sometimes overly complex, but inevitably somewhat useful financial products built upon some of these like foundational building blocks. Like a bond, or in this case, a liquid staking token, where the yield of the network accrues back to this base level token, which is then fully integratable with all these different dApps and can be serve as the foundation for building more complex financial products. So just wanted to highlight that as kind of a really interesting conceptual way to think about how liquid staking tokens, and in this case, Core's liquid staking token, can be the first step towards more complex applications on the network.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I appreciate you raising that. Part of what is exciting about DeFi is that you can build these primitives up into much more exotic instruments and unlock a whole lot of functionality, which we haven't really seen in finance in a long time. And I'm very happy that liquid staking is going to further that effort and make that much easier to do. I'm really excited to see what comes out of that.
Just one last thing to add is I think everything both of you guys said is correct. And the beauty of ST Core is that now holders can stake in ST Core, earn the staking rewards, and they actually remain liquid, where they can start participating in like use it as a collateral in Coland or NLX, and then really engage in the different dApps within Core's ecosystem. So that's something I want to point out, and maybe our partners have something like opinion about or their perspective about ST Core and how they can user can leverage ST Core to participate in their ecosystem as well.
No, sure. If I can just add, I mean, definitely ST Core. I think for every blockchain out there, if you want to have a DeFi narrative and really be like a decentralized finance hub, you do need to have liquid staking at stake as well. So definitely, like currently in our asset, we only have 4. We have Core USDT, Core BTC, and USDC. But we are working towards delivering as well the ST Core asset on our platform, so people can really leverage it. Because we believe that's not only from a DeFi perspective, but even from a security perspective of a network. I think it's important to have as much ST Core as possible on chain, because it's really as well showing how strong the consensus can be within Core network itself.
Well, there you heard it. You want as much ST Core in the ecosystem as you can get. And as Wayne pointed out, that liquidity just couldn't be more important. It's hard to function if everything is staked up. So liquid staking is a big deal. That's a big deal on Core. And it will open up just whole new vistas of functionality. We're really excited to see what you guys build with it. All right, now we will move on to non-custodial Bitcoin staking. Now, this is a pretty big deal because non-custodial Bitcoin staking will be the third leg of Satoshi Plus consensus. So if you've read the white paper, you know that prior implementations of Satoshi Plus consensus was made up of two primary parts: the delegated proof of work, which comes from Bitcoin miners, and the delegated proof of stake, which comes from core token holders delegating to validators. And that is part of the way that validators are elected on CoreChain. So it's a very important foundational mechanism to the operation of the entire blockchain project. So in adding something new to it, it's a major difference and is one that we think will make it more robust and more secure and bring lots of benefits to the Cortoshis and the broader ecosystem. So what it means philosophically, if you want to put it that way, is that rather than holders of Bitcoin needing to give up custody of their Bitcoin in order to stake, Cortoshis only need to put their Bitcoin in absolute time locks. Now, I don't have a lot of detail on absolute time locks. They are a cryptographic primitive which is native to Bitcoin, and we can talk more about it perhaps as we go along. But effectively, you're locking the Bitcoin up, and you will receive Core in return for as long as those assets are locked up. So you earn yield on any locked Bitcoin, any Bitcoin that you stake. Now, it's important to note that this is not like staking Core. When you stake Bitcoin on CoreChain, your Bitcoin doesn't leave the Bitcoin blockchain. That's the non-custodial. In non-custodial Bitcoin staking, you're not surrendering it. You maintain custody of it, but you are still able to stake it and earn yields in Core tokens. So finally, just technologically, I would say that it doesn't rely on smart contracts, which is the standard way to affect a change of this kind or to implement a mechanism of this kind. Instead, we're using cryptographic primitives, those absolute time locks I mentioned earlier, which are native to Bitcoin. So we're using the underlying Bitcoin machinery in order to implement this. Do any of you have anything to say about the differences between non-custodial Bitcoin staking and Core staking? Is there anything else you'd want to add to what I just said?
I'd be happy to expand very slightly on the time lock kind of mechanism.
Yeah, please.
So it's really interesting how Core has been able to build this kind of functionality within the native functionality set of Bitcoin. As you mentioned, these kind of like time locks traditionally would need like a smart contract in order to implement this kind of logic. But Core was able to utilize a somewhat underappreciated native Bitcoin function of these time locks, which have been part of Bitcoin since 2015. Actually, they were introduced in a set of changes that got into the network. And really, what happens is the coins never actually leave your own Bitcoin address. They stay on your address. It's just that you give up the right to transfer your own coins for a certain amount of blocks. And after that amount of blocks passes, you get your right to transfer your coins again. So you basically always have full custody of your coins. No one else has access to them or can revoke that. And as long as Bitcoin continues to operate normally, which of course, I think a lot of things in the industry and Core are of course like based upon, given that Bitcoin is the most secure and decentralized network, then you'll get your coins back and you'll be able to have full custody of them once again. So just, I think, a really interesting approach to finding a solution for time locks, all with native Bitcoin cryptographic primitives.
Beautiful, thank you.
If I can add, I think it's quite an interesting way of using those Bitcoin mini script, as they call it. And I mean, especially like for us, like I think the Cortoshis, we do a kind of Bitcoin maxi in our own, since we are kind of linked to the BTCFi as well. But definitely like knowing that my BTC are kind of not leaving my wallet, but they are still under my control, is something that I believe is quite a nice feature to add in terms of like security of the network as well, and bring more people towards Core network itself. One thing that I find really interesting during the implementation, because I tested it as well, is that, I mean, as Denali mentioned, like there's a time lock in terms of like, for example, how many blocks in the future you want to be allowed to let those BTC get withdrawn or transferred again. But Core in the implementation decided to use the time lock in timestamp, which means that it's definitely like based on a date and not on a block, which I think is quite interesting, because a block, as we know, is not necessarily every 10 minutes. So it's a bit hard as well to predict how many blocks there will be until next week, for example. So knowing that it's time lock in terms of timestamp with a date I think it's helping as well people to still feel confident that they can, let's say, transfer back that token or have, let's say, the liquidity of the token back after a clear period of time. I think it's quite interesting to use it like that.
Great clarification.
100%. I mean, yeah, to add a little bit to that, it's just that it allows for not just it allows for a specific type of user to also interact with the core protocol and to just help with consensus while not having to actually do any of the DeFi stuff or the complicated things. Most people, they just want to hold their Bitcoin and they want to keep earning without having to actually do anything. And because, Bitcoin is also just a store of value that most people just want to hold. And that's understandable. And I think that in this point, with this integration, Core is able to offer that and even expand on that and allow for people to earn even more on top of what they already have. So, it's definitely a cool integration that I think will allow to, to cater to just the other type of audience that maybe wasn't too much interested or isn't too keen to the DeFi side of things. So, very cool to see.
Those are great clarifications. I really appreciate that. And I think it speaks to the profound alignment between the core chain and Bitcoin. So we've always billed ourselves as a supplement to Bitcoin, something that's trying to expand its functionality. And I think you can see even in the details here that when we wanted to implement non-custodial Bitcoin staking, we did it, number one, using underutilized features of Bitcoin itself, which have been around for a while and have not been picked up to create applications like this. And we've also done it in a way that accommodates the desires of just pure Bitcoin holders, just people who are bought into that network.
One last thing I would like to add is not only just that you are earning rewards, but you are actually voting on Core's validator sets, which means you are participating in keeping Core secure and really, helping out the whole crypto ethos in terms of decentralization, in terms of making things more secure. So that's just something I want to point out, that in addition to rewards, you are actually doing something that's aligned with the whole crypto blockchain ethos in keeping things safe.
Yep, 100%. That's actually what we're going to cover in the next slide. So what does this technical innovation ultimately mean? Well, first of all, it means that billions, with a B, billions of dollars worth of underutilized Bitcoin value will become productive because those Bitcoin holders are able to stake their Bitcoin in a non-custodial fashion and then get core yields in return. And those Bitcoin stakers will be paid to expand the scope of Bitcoin's utility. And I think it's worth pausing on that just for a moment. In the short term, what they get are returns. But in the long term, what they're doing is participating in validator election on Core Chain. They are pushing this network forward and underwriting its security. And ultimately, the long-term value proposition of the Core blockchain is acting as a scalable smart contract platform for Bitcoin. So, our ultimate vision is to bring about Bitcoin DeFi, and by engaging in non-custodial Bitcoin staking, you are helping to move that forward. So you're actively investing in the health of a long-term project that will redound to your benefit in a very major way. And to Wayne's point, it also means an expansion of Core Chain's security, which is now underwritten by three things. Previously, it was delegated proof of work and delegated proof of stake. Now it is delegated proof of work, Bitcoin stakers, and delegated proof of stake. And just as a point of clarification, non-custodial Bitcoin staking has the word staking in its name, as does delegated proof of stake, but we consider them to be sufficiently different that they are in fact distinct things and distinct contributions to the consensus process on Core Chain. And one thing I wanted to point out is that there hasn't actually been a change to the underlying reward pool. It's just divided among 3 stakeholders instead of 2. I don't have a lot of detail in the slide about how rewards are calculated or distributed on Core Chain, but that's something I'm happy to cover in the question period if anybody wants to get into that. So before we moved on to Wrap Bitcoin, I thought you guys made excellent points already, but is there anything else you want to add before we cover the last topic?
I was just wondering if tech people know if it would be possible to implement such kind of a mechanism on the Lightning Network as well. Because as you know, the Bitcoin network, the fee might be, let's say, problematic for some users. And I know that there's a minimum staking of BTC to be able to participate in the security of the network. So would it be possible to have such kind of feature on the Lightning Network as well and enable maybe more people to utilize such kind of feature for Wayne and Denali?
We haven't had a discussion on implementing Lightning Network. especially there are a lot of things in the pipeline that we are working on. But I don't know if Denali has anything else to add in terms of from a technical point of view. But that's something that we haven't discussed internally, to be frank.
Yeah, I actually don't know off the top of my head if absolute time locks would be available on Lightning Network. I assume they would be, and we can leverage that in order to provide like a low fee environment for the same type of functionality. A really interesting line of thinking to investigate how we can potentially pair with some of these other like Bitcoin utility features in order to bring the best experience to our users.
Beautiful. All right, thanks, guys. Those are great points and great questions as well. So now let us move on to Wrapped Bitcoin. So just a bit of history here. As I think most of you will know, for a long time, different blockchain projects effectively acted as lone islands unto themselves. They were siloed projects with very little in the way of interfaces to other projects, and there was no good way to send data or to send assets between chains. And recognizing that this was having a stultifying effect on innovation in the space, various ways of fostering cross-chain interoperability were developed, with two of the most important being bridges, which we're not going to get into, and the other being wrapped assets, which is what we're going to focus on now. So in general, what a wrapped asset does is link a source chain and a target chain. And generally the way this works is assets on the source chain are locked up, and a synthetic representation is minted on the target chain. And if it helps, I like to think of this as sort of akin to teleportation. If you've read any of those old science fiction stories where you would step into a teleporter and then a copy of you steps out on the other side on a distant planet or another galaxy or what have you, it works in a similar sort of fashion here. I think that's a very generative metaphor for thinking about it. Now on Core Chain, the way this works is staked Bitcoin is sent to the address of an entity called a locker, with a capital L, an entity called a locker. And through a series of steps, which I'll cover shortly, that ultimately leads to the minting of Core BTC. And I also want to point out that technically lockers can move the Bitcoin, but they face very steep slashing penalties if they do so. And that too is something that we'll cover in the next slide. So wrapped assets are not new. There have been prior implementations, probably the most famous of which is Ethereum's version of wrapped Bitcoin, WBTC. But all of those prior implementations, for the most part, have had significant centralization issues. And this stems largely from the fact that the process of minting a wrapped asset and redeeming the wrapped asset for the original is usually controlled by a singular centralized entity. And it will come as no shock to you that this scheme, the structure, tends to undermine trustlessness and decentralization, and that results in a security profile that is not as good as Bitcoin's, and that's not something we want. So most of us, I think it's probably safe to assume, got into the Bitcoin space because we buy into, or the crypto asset space more generally, because we buy into the basic ethos. We want permissionlessness, we want trustlessness, we want decentralization. We don't want there to be single points of failure, and we don't want there to be single entities that are able to control these things. So all of that, permissionlessness, trustlessness, and decentralization, are baked in at a foundational level to Core Chain's implementation of wrapped Bitcoin, which we call Core BTC. Those are our highest values, and that is reflected in the way we've put all of this together. And if the technical folks want to comment on that, they can, or I can move on to the rest.
Well, I just kind of wanted to add that, I mean, Core BTC for us, for NLX, it's very important. It will act as basically our backbone for our liquidity for our markets that will allow to unlock new utilities for Bitcoin holders that they cannot see before. You know, thanks to Core BTC, we'll be able to collateralize all our perpetual markets in isolated pools, and allow for Bitcoin holders to also trade directly with their BTC without having to sign for any stable coin or any other centralized alternative. And yeah, it makes it way easier for everybody. So we're really excited to be working with Core BTC here, and it's going to be the backbone of liquidity in Core, and that's what we're betting on.
Beautiful. You love to hear it. Is that it? All right. I will move on now. So with wrapped Bitcoin, the main players you should be aware of are lockers, BTC users, BTC holders, relayers, liquidators, and guardians. Now, what I'm giving you here is a broad sketch of how all of this works. Of course, you can also check out Unlocking Bitcoin DeFi. I forget. Denali, do you happen to know what the URL is off the top of your head where that white paper is hosted?
Yeah, I think it's unlockingbitcoindefi.com.
Okay, so unlockingbitcoindefi.com. And is that BITCOIN or BTC?
That's just spelled out BITCOIN. So unlocking BITCOIN DeFi.com.
Okay, so there you can find our utility white paper where we go into exhaustive detail about how every bit of this works, and we've got charts and we've got numbers. Like you can figure out all the machinery if you want to. What I'm providing here is just a broad overview. With that said, lockers we've already met. Lockers are the nodes that securely hold a user's Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. Right. Lockers hold the Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. In order to mint Core BTC, what a user has to do is decide how much Core BTC they want. And then the Core Chain platform identifies a suitable locker and sort of connects them. And then that user's Bitcoin is sent over to the locker's address where it's held. Anyone can register as a locker on Core Chain. They have to lock up a certain amount of collateral for reasons that we will discuss in the next slide. All right, now there are also relayers. And if you've read the original white paper, you know that relayers play a very important role in linking Core Chain and the Bitcoin blockchain. In this context, what they do is they monitor the Bitcoin blockchain for transactions to that locker's address. So when a user decides they want Core BTC, they send that BTC over, that's captured in a transaction. And once a suitable number of confirmations have happened on Bitcoin, the relayer will submit that transaction to a smart contract hosted on Core Chain, and that smart contract is what mints the Core BTC. What relayers ultimately mean is that they obviate the need to engage with both the Bitcoin and Core chains separately, because otherwise you'd have to go through a much more friction-filled process. There would be transaction fees associated on both chains. Probably not a ton, but you know those things add up, and any friction that you have in the process makes people less likely to utilize it and to build on top of it. So relayers are our answer to that quandary. We have set this up so that you don't have to do double the work in order to get Core BTC, this wrapped version of Bitcoin on Core Chain. I don't have a lot of detail about what redeeming Core BTC looks like, but it's essentially just the same process in reverse. You declare your intention to redeem the Core BTC. That is handled with the underlying mechanisms, and then ultimately the Core BTC is burned and the original is released back to the holder. So it's all very straightforward. It's all designed in a way that's pretty easy to utilize and to work through. All right, and then finally, we will talk about two other entities, liquidators and guardians. Liquidators effectively watch the health conditions of all the lockers, and in this context, health conditions effectively just means collateral ratios. So in order to act as a locker, an entity has to have a certain amount of core underwriting the Bitcoin that they have. So you couldn't have 30 Bitcoin in one core. That wouldn't work. You've got to maintain a certain ratio. And if that ratio begins to get out of balance, if it gets out of whack, the liquidators execute a series of actions that force rebalancing of that ratio and thus maintain the health of all the lockers on the system. And then finally, there are guardians. As their name implies, guardians are on guard for malfeasance, for misbehavior on the part of lockers or any other entities operating in through this process. So what a guardian can do is slash a locker's collateral as appropriate. So remember, we said that anyone can become a locker, but you have to lock up a certain amount of collateral. That's part of the collateralization that underwrites the Bitcoin holdings, but it's also a stick that a guardian can use to punish them if they do something they're not supposed to do. They can slash that collateral if it's appropriate to do so, and they can also jail them if they do something bad. So on Core Chain, jailing means that you were removed from the set of activities you were engaging in. So if a validator is jailed, they can't engage in the consensus process. And if a locker is jailed, they're not able to act as a locker any longer. So you've got slashing, you've got jailing. Those are two tools that guardians can use to ensure that lockers behave the way they're supposed to and the health of the ecosystem is maintained overall. And it incentivizes good behavior, which is, obviously something that we want. Wayne, I know that you're super involved in this process. Denali, any of you guys have anything you want to say about this or details you want to fill in?
I think you did a good job. I think one thing to point out is like the collateral is over collateralization, so that there's always more collateral than the Bitcoin they are holding, and therefore that whenever before like if they do any like trying to transfer out of Bitcoin and stuff like that, will slash them. So their penalty is heavier than what they get, and therefore it's a trustless mechanism built right there. And to access core BTC, you just need to go to bridge.coredao.org. Then you will have access to that core BTC bridge.
That's bridge.coredao.org.
Correct.
Okay, bridge.coredao.org if you want to get in on this.
Hey, and just actually wanted to ask something for just general clarification. And this is all permissionless. Anybody can become a liquidator. Anybody can be a locker. Anybody can be a relayer, right? So
Correct.
This is like the primary difference between what you have from WBTC going into core BTC, right?
Correct. It's permissionless. Yes, anyone can become one.
As long as you meet the requirements, the collateralization requirements and such.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so to wrap up, we have covered liquid staking tokens, non-custodial Bitcoin staking, and wrapped Bitcoin. ST Core is our version of liquid staked tokens. They allow us to continue to have Cortoshis more broadly participate in consensus and security on the core chain while also remaining liquid and facilitating all those DeFi applications that we're excited about. With non-custodial Bitcoin staking, people can get paid in order to stake their Bitcoin, and they also contribute to an ecosystem that in the long term will work to everyone's benefit. And then we have wrapped Bitcoin, which, as we just covered, is yet another connection between core chain and the Bitcoin blockchain, and also for its part opens up a great deal of new functionality. So we're very excited about these innovations. We're really, really excited to hear about what you guys, our partners, are building with this and all the ways in which it's contributing to your projects. And we thank you for listening. And I think we have time for questions.
All right. Thank you, Trent, for all of this and this presentation. There are a few questions. I'm going to show the first one here. So about ST Core Delegated, how is the basis of reward distribution?
Okay, so I can answer that. So essentially, you imagine that if you hold, let's say, 100 core and you mint SD core, you hold a SD core, then you can use that SD core however you wish, as long as it's allowed in terms of, let's say, if participant colon or NLX and stuff like that. And you don't actually get a reward, because the reward you're getting is the ratio between core and ST core are shifting. So, for example, when you minted SD core, let's just say the ratio is 1 to 1.1. And so for every 1.1 core, you get 1 SD core. But over time, that ratio can go from 1.1 to 1.2. And therefore, when you try to redeem the 1 SD core back to core, you actually get more core. And that's how you receive your reward. So by holding this SD core with a fixed quantity, you can go and start participating in other DeFi protocols like Colon and NLX, and then continue to earn the staking rewards. The moment you redeem it, you will have it. And in the market, let's say if you go to like the DEX trying to make swaps, it will reflect those ratio changes as well. So then you can swap SD core back to core, let's say on the DEX as well, if you don't want to go to redeem route. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up another one. Does all of these happen on MetaMask? And there's a suggestion, maybe you guys should do a practical video on how to do liquid staking.
Well, this doesn't necessarily, you can use different wallets. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, we can definitely look into that, Diego. And then I think I have done some kind of video, and then I can follow up on that to make sure that it's available for anyone. At least it's obvious for everyone to access to it.
I just would like to add, so for the non-custodial BTC staking, if I'm right, it's happening on Unisat's wallets and Xverse wallet as well. So which is a wallet which is mainly BTC focused for the community. So you might want to look into that. I had a question as well, if I can jump in for non-custodial staking. So if let's say I take an example, arbitrary number. Let's say I stake, for example, 0.5 BTC in a non-custodial way. Those 0.5 BTC are going to be locked, for example, for 1 month. this is going to generate a specific miniscript address. If I send additional BTC to this address, is it going to impact my yields on the core chain, or is it only done the first time I do the synchronization? For example, can I add more BTC to my non-custodial staking BTC once I've done it once, or do I need to regenerate a time lock? I don't know if you have the answer already or not.
I think you'll believe to go ahead, Wayne.
No, go ahead, Denali.
Yeah, I think you'll basically need to create an additional time lock because once you've revoked your ability to spend that first set of coins, you basically revoke it for like X amount of coins and then either X amount of blocks or like until X timestamp, right? And so I think you would need to go and create another time lock kind of feature and lock away those coins. That'd be my intuition there.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially the case. So, for example, but you can go back and choose the same expiration, I'd say, date, and that should allow you to take out the both, let's say, Bitcoin on the same date, if that's useful for you. But I mean, essentially, they can operate in parallel without issues.
Right. So my idea was, for example, to create a loop where I, for example, lock some BTC in a non-custodial way. I generate some core token as reward. Those core token, I can then use them as collateral and borrow core BTC on Coland, send those borrowed core BTC on top of my non-custodial staking to basically increase my yield. But if I need to do a time lock again, that transaction cost might be a bit too high. But I will look into it and discuss offline and maybe tweet about it.
I mean, Toby, you also have another problem there, which is a time lock. So eventually these, even after like you lock it up and everything, at some point the BTC is going to be returned to the owner of the address, like not even returned, just unlocked. So you can't really mint something on core based on that, unless there's a way to perpetually just lock it on BTC while keeping the trust and sense of it. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have this. I don't know if that solved the issue, but I think we are looking to and rolling out let's say once your Bitcoin is unlocked, we can restake the same stake again for another like period of time. And I don't know if that addressed your questions, but that's something that we are working on and looking into, if that helps.
So that would basically be act for like a non-custodial Bitcoin LST maybe on core. Is that what that would be for?
That Bitcoin LST is something that we are looking into, but that's a separate implementation. It really just to simplify. Let's say, for example, the time is locked up, instead of like redeeming it, you can restake it, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Okay, let me show another question here. Will you create a derivative asset with all those BTC locked thanks to non-custodial BTC staking?
I mean, we don't have. I mean, we don't have plans for that. I don't think we can. We don't have control of all those Bitcoins. I don't know, Denali, if you have another opinion on that, but.
Yeah, so because the non-custodial BTC staking's design intentionally, like the Bitcoin is non-custodial, right? It's like Core never takes ownership of that Bitcoin, which is part of why it's so attractive to BTC holders. They don't have to ever go move their Bitcoin off of the Bitcoin network. They don't actually have to go trust some third party at any stage. It's basically a zero trust assumption way to earn a yield on their Bitcoin, right? And because of that, Core doesn't ever have the ability to slash that underlying Bitcoin or liquidate that underlying Bitcoin. In that way, it's difficult for it to act as collateral in the current implementation. That's why we have Core BTC as a different kind of product and different solution. for people who are comfortable using their Bitcoin as collateral in order to create this synthetic core BTC over on Core, and then they can use that in the different DeFi applications that exist on the Core blockchain. But I think in its current implementation, it's a little difficult to do that with the non-custodial Bitcoin, because we would have to take custody or have the ability to take custody of the underlying asset somewhere in order to use that as actually collateral, which would be cool because we would get another synthetic version on Bitcoin, but it would kind of destroy the non-custodial aspect. So I think in its current implementation, we want to leave this product for users and institutions who are interested in that zero trust assumption model. But there will be future iterations of like Bitcoin kind of primitive products that may combine some of the features that we've already brought out and maybe offer even more innovative solutions in the future to others who are comfortable with different sets of trust assumptions.
Cool. Okay, let's jump to the next question. I have some core delegated, and I am not able to undelegate it from core side through Trust Wallet. What is the way out?
Maybe you can go to our Discord channel support and figure out. I mean, just first you need to make sure that you have enough core to actually redeem it, to claim the core and then take it out. So I think that's one potential issue, but I think you can go to our Discord channel and we can help you with it.
All right, next question. Liquid staking. Do we get rewards daily? I tried staking, but I didn't get any rewards after almost 2 days, so unstaked and went with the regular delegation. I think Wayne answered this question already, but if you want to jump in.
Yeah, but it's the same answer as previously. Like you will receive the more core when you redeem your SD core.
All right, so I think we are kind of running out of time. Anyone wants to mention anything before we wrap the call?
I would reiterate what Wayne said. If you have technical questions, the Discord server is the absolute best way to get in touch with us. We have engineers lurking in there and answering questions all the time. And then I wanted to reiterate that if you want to read the Unlocking Bitcoin Utility white paper, where we get into the nuts and bolts of guardians and lockers and liquidators and all of that, that's at Unlocking Bitcoin DeFi, that BITCOIN, unlockingbitcoindefi.org. And then or is it .com? I'm sorry. Unlocking Bitcoin.
I think it's .com, but the URL is correct.
Okay, unlockingbitcoindefi.com. And then obviously we have the original white paper on our docs on our website. And then if you want to engage in what was the Wrapped Bitcoin, that's at bridge.cordao.org. Is that right, Wayne? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all for joining in today's discussion. It's been a pleasure to share these updates with you all, Cortoshis, and to hear the insights and comments from the ecosystem partners and the core chain devs behind it. So as we wrap up, I want to mention again the significance of today's topics: liquid staking, non-custodial Bitcoin staking, and our trustless, decentralized Wrapped Bitcoin. These developments not only deepen our alignment with Bitcoin, but also enhance the user functionality and security across our network. We are looking forward to seeing how these will transform the broader Bitcoin DeFi space, potentially unlocking trillions in value. Thank you to our guests for also joining, Toby and Max. Would you guys want to add anything?
No, nothing to add. Just thanks for the invite. It was really helpful to see all those new developments. and really looking forward for the community to play with it, and looking forward as well for us as Cortoshi to build more DeFi on top of Core.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you guys invited me, and looking forward to the next iterations, next months of this same call. And also, I don't know if maybe the people on the call saw or not, but you can head over to the Core DAO at Twitter, and you can see that our TaskCon for NLX has just been launched today. So you'll be able to interact with NLX, and you'll be able to get some rewards on top of it. So, just going to the Core DAO Twitter, and you'll be able to see it in there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Max, Wayne, and Denali also for this great discussion. And thank you, Trent, for the walkthrough, the presentation, and for hosting this with me. I'm sure the Cortoshi's really got a lot from today's call. And stay tuned on our socials for many more calls and the AMAs to come. Thank you again, and have a nice day and week. Goodbye.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.